Welcome back to Broadsheet Sydney Around Town. If this is your first time here, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. I'm Emma Joyce, features editor at Broadsheet, and I'm the host of this 10-minute audio guide to Sydney. Let's get into it. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Emma. How are you?
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I know that you've got kind of a heads up on a new venue from a team that we already know and love from a couple of Potts Point venues. So They own Franca and Parlour. Who am I talking about?
You are talking about the owners of the new Parisian restaurant opening on Crown Street called Armorica.
So this third venue by that group that already own Franca and Parlour, they're bringing us a French brasserie, is that correct?
That's correct, yes. So they're sort of making their dream Parisian style restaurant complete with an entire menu dedicated to steak frites.
And whereabouts in Surrey Hills are we talking?
So it's on Crown Street in the former Toco site. So it's right down the road from the Clock. I think you could probably stumble there.
What do we know about the menu so far?
So like I mentioned, there's going to be an entire section of it dedicated to the classic Parisian of steak frites. But they're not just stopping with Australian beef. There's also going to be a lamb steak frites, which you don't see very often. And I don't think I've ever actually had.
No, I don't think I've come across that. So yeah, interesting. A nice little modernization from them.
Yeah, there'll also be a really beautiful looking seafood tower with lobsters and prawns and an octopus roulade. So I think that will be a very impressive showstopper.
I know that other two venues are spacious. So is this a similar size?
No, this was going to be significantly smaller. It still does have 150 seats, but I think just sort of fitting in that sort of Parisian brasserie theme, it's going to be much more cozy, a bit more intimate.
Do we know anything about the fit out?
Yes. So the fit out is a design by a company called Steel and Stitch, as well as Andrew Betcher, who's the owner of the restaurants. And they did the Lobo in the CBD. So it's going to be like red banquette seating, lots of brass finishes, wood joinery. It sounds absolutely beautiful.
Sounds kind of maximalist.
Yeah, I think so.
I love that. I love that for Crown Street. Well, thanks so much for coming in and to tell us all about it, Liz. Hi, Darren Sylvester. Thank you for coming in. You've got a very interesting exhibition opening in Sydney called Too Telegenic to Die. Can you tell me about the title and what you might be exploring with your works?
Telegenic is someone that has a supernatural, a magical power that when they're photographed or filmed, they're better looking than the rest of us.
Which sounds ideal. That sounds like something that we want to achieve.
I think everyone wants to achieve that, but it doesn't happen when I look at a photograph coming back at me. But I think for them, that's kind of like that super magical power is something that could make them into stars, models, actors, rock stars, glam music, things like that. Influencers, anything like that. It's kind of like they're so sort of privileged, I guess, in that kind of way that I'm sort of saying. There's no need for them to die. And I'm sure in their mind, they don't die. They're stars forever kind of thing. So I think that's what it was. I like a catchy title too. So I think that's also it.
You are obsessed with mortality or immortality and pop culture, consumerism, and how we are thinking about record keeping, essentially, what you're talking about really with the show. Is this obsession something that evolves, stays with you?
I know it stays with me. Yeah, and I'm sure someone had pointed out I could go seek therapy or something like that. But essentially, I have an everyday common. Well, it's not common. It's just every nightmare is one of me dying. Every day is me like not wanting to die, and it freaks me out quite a lot. And a lot of my artwork is about dying, and a lot about is like how can I get out of it? And I don't really want to sign up to it. And what can we do about this? So it's almost like a poetic play. Every show is that. Of talking about those things. It's funnily enough, we had like a show, I had a survey show at the NGV 2 years ago, and over 20 years we thought like, how are we going to combine everything into like chapters? And we realized there's only like 3 chapters. It's kind of like pop music, death, and love. And then I just find a million different ways to talk about them.
Can we talk specifically about some of the images that we can see within Telegenic to die.
Yep.
Your choice. Would you like to pick one of them?
There's 3 or 4 series of photos with sometimes they're just one, or sometimes they're 2. There's one that's a series of telegenic performers getting ready, and I know that they were chosen because they were telegenic. And then it's very much about this feeling of, you're asleep and then and then you think you're going to die and you wake up and you're shocked and then you're awake and here I am awake. But there's a snap middle period where that's what pretty much every artwork in this show is about, that very fine thing. So they're a good example because they're getting ready for either on stage or performance, and they're in a vanity. And so they're in that thing of they're not at home watching television, they're not on stage performing, they're in the middle limbo period of getting ready. They're transforming in front of our eyes. They're literally changing, and they're changing into stars. And then there's another work in the show called Star Machine, which is 1 million stars that I've built in the studio with a staircase that runs through it. And that kind of staircase links back to Cyndi Lauper, Queen and Beatles records of pop music where they would dance and do choreographed routines up an infinity staircase. It's a star machine that I'm going if I die, I'm going to turn into a star. I think that's like a beautiful, and there's a wishing well in there that keeps your wishes, which is in limbo too, because a wishing well is in limbo. It's a well that goes into the ground. Snow White in the Disney film puts her head down into it and sings a song. You should look that up because it's one of the most haunting sounds you've ever heard. It was one of the very first times they made pretend reverb.
Oh.
And so when she has this choral voice, it's quite scary. And the voices come back to her. And it's actually almost like a deathly experience that she might fall in. Again, it's an idea of being in limbo. And so this work is called Wishes in the Well. Everything I do is built in a studio. I built a full-size well. And went on YouTube and made slime for 3 weeks. Takes 3 weeks to make slime, by the way, and slime is around the well. And
how much slime are we talking?
Like 20 gallons of slime, a lot of slime. And it's a bouldering cauldron. It's called Wishes in the Well. And I kind of want it to be that when you're looking at it, it's like your wishes are always there. They're kind of like deathly, but they're actually they're quite positive.
Often with some of the works that I've seen from your practice is they are things that remind us of the world that we live in. It's not necessarily a mirror up to how we're living, but they remind us of the time and place that we are part of. Is that something that you think will stay with your work ongoing?
Yeah, I think it's about me discovering a picture somewhere that's a signifier that we all know. In my early work, I used a lot of fast food, and that was the thing of that was the signifier. We all know what KFC is.
KFC.
So that was
McDonald's.
Famous for mine, but that doesn't really occur in my work anymore. It's turned into symbols.
Yeah.
Staircases, doors, things and also there's neons in the show with arrows and what they're kind of symbols that I still want. Everyone has that experience of life and death, and I feel I'm looking for symbols that people can recognize. And then what is the sort of intrinsic magical power that sort of symbol has, and drawing it out and making it appear very much like an image that we kind of imagine, but it doesn't really exist. There's lots of mirrors in this show, but I kind of go art to me, art is not a mirror. I don't believe I'm not a fan of art that reflects back society. To me, art is a door that you go through. You should be looking at it, and then my photographs are huge. They're often something up to 6 meters. You should be in front of them like a Rothko kind of thing. That sort of symbolism. The wishing well is actual size. It's kind of when you're in front of it. You should be going, the emotional attention should be going through, not a mirror.
When we're going through an artwork, what do you imagine that those people viewing it are going through to discover? I'm
doing it for myself. Then when other people see it, it's for them to go, someone might feel the same way as I do, I'm guessing. We're in this together, I suppose.
We are in this together. And so we're in this limbo stage together.
Yeah, we're kind of we weren't born, now we're here, then we're not going to be here. Yeah, a lot of my work is that kind of what are we doing here? I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know the answer to that. I really like that you face this ongoing, almost daily, big questions that most of us will try and avoid by distracting ourselves with many other things. Do you distract yourself with anything?
Chardonnay. I guess that would be like one distraction.
I like that. I'm really pleased that there is a distraction in your life and you're not always having to face these existential questions. But I thank you very much for doing it, because it means that when we come to your show, we can maybe discover something about ourselves or the reason that we're here or any of our feelings towards death, which can be joyful.
It's a very joyful looking show. It actually looks very up. And so, yeah, it's a very beautiful show. We've been installing for the last 48 hours. It's going well. And
where can people find it if they're not familiar?
Well, it's at Sullivan and Strumpf, which is in Zetland. You can look that up. They're on Instagram and everything like that, but opens tomorrow night. And so they have a website. I have an Instagram. You'll see things.
And this runs until?
End of April, I think it is. Yeah, it's like a good 4 or 5 weeks, I think.
Well, thanks so much for coming in and telling us about it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's really fascinating, and I'm going to go along and try to identify where I'm finding the familiarity. Like, where's my staircase? What am I picturing? Where's my mirror? Where's my wishing well?
Yeah.
And where does that come from?
Yeah, picture yourself in those scenes.
And that's all we have time for today. As always, you can keep up to date with what's happening around Sydney at broadsheet.com.au and on Instagram at broadsheet_Sid. I'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Chat then.